This is Think Out Loud on OPB. I'm Dave Miller. Oregon can be a good place for travelers with disabilities. That's according to an inclusive travel company that verified hundreds of restaurants, hotels, and other places across the state for their accessibility. But there is still a lot of opportunity to expand accessibility within the state. And that's what researchers at Southern Oregon University set out to do. They got a grant from Travel Oregon to develop an accessibility training program for tourism business leaders across the state. Pavlina McGrady and Rebecca Williams co-led the project. They're business professors at SOU. Ulysses McCready consulted on the project. He's a student with blindness at the university. All three of them joined me last October. I started by asking Pavlina how she defines accessible tourism.
What is accessible tourism? Part of the problem is that a lot of people have kind of open concept and very different interpretation. But in simple terms, it can be just the ongoing endeavor of tourist destinations or businesses to offer products, services, different activities that are accessible to all people. And that means regardless of their physical limitations, disabilities, or even age, again, that can relate not only for people with disabilities, but also for younger children, older adults, and so forth. So making destinations and tourism business activities and services available to everybody. In simple terms.
Rebecca, it seems like one of the challenges here is the broadness of what could be included here, because given that there's just such a huge spectrum of disabilities and human abilities, what's accessible for one person may not be accessible for somebody else. How does that complicate the work you're trying to do?
I think a lot of the world has been designed for able bodies, and what we're trying to help people understand is that if you create it in a universal design format, then it is open to anybody to be able to access. And so if we can start from that framework and then look throughout our businesses and assess what are the things that we need to redesign, or could be mild, simple improvements, a little bit of our time versus resources and money and millions of dollars, which is where a lot of people's brains frantically go to.
Yeah. Is it fair to say, Rebecca, I understand that you're a wheelchair user yourself, that this is both an academic question for you and a personal one?
It is. I was injured by an intoxicated individual on 4th of July in 2022 in Brookings, Oregon, and I am now a full-time wheelchair user.
Can you give us a sense for the accessibility issues that you've encountered as you've traveled around, as you've engaged with tourism businesses in recent years?
Since being able to get some abilities back, because I'd spent a good number of years doing recovery work. And so anything from their interpretation of what an accessible room is, or what height of toilet levels, bedroom height of the actual sleeping height of the mattresses, a desk that I couldn't get under because they assumed it would be accessible for anyone. And I'm in a simple push chair. So this doesn't even count the other hundreds of different kinds of chairs that are available to other kinds of users as well. So yeah, it's just been phenomenal. One of the restrooms that I was in was supposed to be a zero entry shower, and they had it was quite large shower, and they had the accessible bench on one end all the way over, and 7 feet on the other side was the controls for it. And so I couldn't access it or take a shower. And so it just gets really demeaning, I think, in a lot of ways, that I'm not able to access things that I would like to use.
In a case like that, do you say anything? I'm wondering.
I'm very vocal. Yes, I do. I approach managers and share with them not only my experience, but also the accessibility consulting work that we do in educating. And I share with them those kinds of things. In the same hotel, the breakfast buffet was a very narrow place for, a body to walk sideways through like a buffet would be. But there was no room for me in a chair to go through it. And so I had to find someone to help me and get me breakfast. And so there were a number of things. I think everyone is on a journey for accessibility and whatever stage that they're at. And there's probably something in the quality improvement realm that there's something everybody can do.
Pavlina, you used an earlier grant from Travel Oregon to do surveys and focus groups of a bunch of tourism businesses in Southern Oregon. What kinds of themes stood out? What did you hear from these businesses about what they're doing and what they want?
Yes, we conducted research. We did in-person surveys. We did in-person assessments where we had a checklist to check kind of where businesses were in terms of the infrastructure. And then we also, after that, we had focus groups to get deeper understanding, and then stakeholder meetings after that to share findings and kind of gather last pieces of information. The main kind of findings from that study were that, well, one, there are a lot of accessibility challenges. The main challenges that businesses experience were, I think, obviously beyond financial issues, because most of them are small businesses. Just the main quote kind of that stood out for us: we don't know what we don't know. There are so many different types of disabilities, and we found that none of the businesses we surveyed had a specific training for their staff to go beyond general hospitality, but to go into kind of accessibility, maybe learning how to work with people with disabilities, how to be welcoming, etc. So the number one probably was the lack of information. So they really, everybody shared that they're really willing to learn and want to know more, just don't know where to look, how to access it, and so forth. So people were interested in having different types of information formats, and then having some kind of resource hub where they can access information on different providers, trainings, grants, and so forth on accessibility. So that was kind of the major finding, that just there's not enough information.
And that's what you're working on now, your team, is to provide those trainings to
Right.
businesses in a number of places. Ulysses, how did you get involved in this project?
Yeah, so I met Rebecca just as an accident. Over the summer, we sat together at an event and started talking about our kind of similar experiences. And she heard what I had to say and reached out to ask me whether I would like to just be involved in the training a little bit and share my experience. So I did, and it was a very gratifying, enjoyable experience because um, accessibility is something I'm extremely passionate about discussing with folks on a personal level, on an academic level, across the board, because it is vital to people and it changes people's lives. And especially in the context of experiences of travel and tourism, like I have been on so many trips that taught me things that I have carried with me or given me experiences that have changed my outlook on the world. And so I just was happy to talk about some of those things and share my insight with people who may have never interacted with a blind person before, kind of across the board. So I helped film a video and just kind of gave a little bit of background about myself, and it was a very positive experience. And I hope to do more if other opportunities,
You,
come from that. And if I told Rebecca, I was like, if there are more spaces for me to get involved with this project, I'm totally there, because grants like this are few and far between, and I think it's amazing what they're doing.
what would you say to business owners who think that the efforts that they may make to make their businesses more accessible, that they'll be too costly or too difficult?
This is a very good question, and one that I generally answer in a similar way every time, because for me, access benefits everybody. Um, People have a wide variety of needs, even when they share similar conditions. Everyone's need is different, and that's worth considering. But it's also worth considering how taking measures to increase access help everybody. There's a phenomenon known as the curb cut effect, which highlights how the curb cut was, um, created and invented to benefit folks who use wheelchairs, and that kind of expanded outward to help everyone. It helps blind people align themselves to cross streets safely. It helps people with strollers and shopping carts and similar things. And I think that principle applies across the board, where you may have a business or an institution saying something along the lines of, this is too much work, this is too much effort, and they don't pause to consider how much their effort will impact not only the people who it like helps just gain access in the first place, but people who already have access.
Rebecca, what do you see as some, I don't know, low-hanging fruit that tourism operators or business owners could think about, things that they could do? And I'm thinking in particular that don't cost a lot of money. If we're talking, say, about small businesses that don't have a lot of money, and if we're not talking about federal law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, but doing more, what are some things that you're training people to think about?
We found that a number of the small businesses, if they have a website, and keep in mind many don't, that one of the first things they can do is to have an accessibility tab that allows individuals to gain insight about what is available at their site, and also even possibly what isn't, just to let people know what they can do for them, how they've served people in the past, potential examples if they wanted to share that, or even loyalty comments from clients that they have served. And then pictures, letting people know what their access looks like. So here are the front doors that you can enter. We have a push button, or if you let us know that you're coming on a certain day, we'll make sure that if we can open it for you. If we don't have a push button, just general kinds of setups along those lines. And then a lot of the transitions in where people are heading to, which are we'd love to have all these sensory exhibits and those kinds of things, right? Is even being able to provide descriptions for people about what those existing things that they have are, whether it's artwork that's in a hotel, descriptions about what that artwork looks like, whether it's audio or braille or things like that, for people to be able to understand what their surroundings look like. Something even as simple as a customer service angle of someone coming in and saying, this is what our front room looks like. Let me describe it for you for a moment, if they're unable to see it visually. There's some very simple things that they can do to help increase and share what they're able to do for individuals.
Pavlina, how will you know that your trainings are working, that they're leading to change?
Yeah, we have participants who have RSVP for the training complete a survey to kind of ask them what is their knowledge on accessibility and accessible tourism prior to the training, what are some of the topics they're interested in, etc. And then we also ask them to complete a quick post-training survey where we ask them to see to share if their knowledge had kind of increased, and also to get feedback, obviously, what they like and didn't like about the training. So that will be the simple way to see if they feel like they learn from the training. And then we also have a workbook where we ask them to participate in different activities. And one of them is to develop some strategies, short-term and long-term. Again, some of them simple, just adding information to the website and things like that, while others more long-term that maybe require funding. So we'll try to follow up with some of those businesses and organizations, but the most kind of tangible way will be to analyze our survey results at the end of the whole project. And we do that after every training to see how they feel. Did they learn from it? Were they happy with the training? And then hopefully we see more change happening for accessibility.
Pavlina McGrady and Rebecca Williams are business professors at Southern Oregon University. Ulysses McCready is a student with blindness at SOU. We talked last October about their training effort to make tourism more accessible in Oregon. Tomorrow on the show, Sophocles wrote Antigone almost 2,500 years ago, but the themes in the story are timeless. The Nez Perce scholar and author Beth Piatote was inspired to write an indigenous version of Antigone, featuring a young woman torn between a moral duty to her family and ancestors and the will of the state. We'll talk to her, the director, and an actor on the next Think Out Loud. Our production staff includes Malia Fass, Rolly Hernandez, Gemma DiCarlo, senior producer Allison Frost, and managing producer Shiraz Sadiq. Naleen Silva and Layla Isbell engineer the show from the Gert Boyle studio. Our technical director is Stephen Cray, and our executive producer is Sage Van Wing. If you don't want to miss any of our shows, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. There's also our nightly rebroadcast that is at 8 p.m. Thanks very much for tuning in to Think Out Loud on OPB and KLCC. I'm Dave Miller. Have a great day.
Think Out Loud is supported by Steve and Jan Oliva, the Rose E. Tucker Charitable Trust, Ray and Marilyn Johnson, the Susan Hammer Fund of Oregon Community Foundation, and the Lang Svingard Family Fund.